It is Monday, October 22nd. Haven't done one of these garden videos in a long time. Since well before I had the fence. This is what happened to the beautiful gate that I had built. The very first time it rained, it broke in half and ended up that I don't have to move it. I can just step right over it. And it's done its job. It's kept critters out, including the chicken faces. And peppers are doing really well with the rains that we've had. Jalapenos, more jalapenos. Pretty much everything in this bed has nice peppers on it. Check this one out. And along the fence, this fence has been here long enough for peas to be growing that tall. What do you know? I planted also some peas that were probably 4 years old, from seeds that old. And they are blossomed, not as tall, but they look like they're going to do something. There's one little carrot that seemed to have made it since spring. Another pepper plant that has some nice looking big ones on it. And a tomato. This was the one that was initially in my carrot bed. And the very first tomato is on it. Over here's another bed full of peppers. There was another volunteer tomato here that got taken out some time ago. This bed I have not watered in more than a week, so they're looking a little droopy. These seem to be chile piquins. Lots more jalapenos in there. Here's another tomato plant that has been giving me some little cherry tomatoes like that. Another volunteer plant. All the parsley that's fallen over. Tomatoes growing here were another volunteer plant. All these tomato plants you're seeing are volunteer plants. Just came from seeds that were in my dishwater. This is about the biggest tomato I've actually seen growing in my garden this year, and this tomato was one that I actually started from seeds inside under the lamp. Next door, this is my interesting bed. This bed had kale and arugula first, and then I decided why not put some okra. I had no idea what to expect. Getting lots of these. So these definitely are big enough that they need to be cut. These okra plants went through some crazy aphid infestation and they still produce. I've sprayed them, smell a spray bottle, with a garlic and soap water thing. But there's also been some good beneficial bugs on here, and if I can catch it with the wind, see a tiny little white guy up there. That is a mealybug predator. They eat the aphids, and they are really the craziest little bugs ever if you get to look at them really up close. And the rest of this bed are tomatillos, and again, I didn't know what to expect with tomatillos. Of the two plants here, one in the cage has had a lot of the individual branches kind of fall over, and the pods around the tomatillos have turned kind of purplish. I was just reading last night that you're supposed to harvest these things when the fruit starts to bust out of the pod, but the fruits are tiny inside the pods here, so I think I can still harvest them anyway and make salsa out of them. That's going to be my plan. In between there's this pepper called an alma paprika, and they do turn red after that initial yellow color. Those are really different. Taste a little different too. Over here, basil has been going. Check out a little bee there on the basil flower. This stuff is delicious, delicious. It's made some yummy pestos, and just last night I put it in eggplant parmesan, the second eggplant that I got off of this plant, which has a bunch of these purple flowers now. It had at least 2 other eggplant fruits that grew on it, but they both kind of rotted on the vine and I had to throw them out. And there is this one other tomato here, which I did start from seed. It totally blew over in the wind. the actual tomatoes on it are doing okay, despite the fact that there have been several little infestations of stink bugs, or those leaf-footed bugs. So that red one needs to be cut. The green ones, I can cut those where they are right now and they'll ripen on the windowsill. Not that I would need to, it's 85 degrees right now and it's not going to freeze anytime soon. Here's a bed of greens that I planted. The couple large ones were from our first planting that didn't really take in August. And then all the small little things, except for a couple that are obviously weeds, are hopefully going to turn into lettuce salads for the winter. Can you see a pepper in there? There's a tiny one and a big one in the background. These are the 2 pepper plants that I purchased as actual transplants from the store. And they have done a little, they haven't grown up, but they have given me 2 big plants, or 2 big peppers each. These, if you leave them on the vine, will turn orange and red. I found that the birds like to get them when you leave them on the vine. Over here, I decided to plant the rest of the beets since they worked well in this general region of the garden. There's a little parsley that's jumped beds, and hopefully one broccoli that will turn into something, hopefully, we'll see. This next row I've got a few individual tomatoes that I think I'm about to give up on watering, although maybe I shouldn't. There are some blossoms on it. These are ones that I started inside. And this one I'm not going to give up on watering. They look really different than the other tomatoes in my garden. They've got this really green at the top. So maybe this is one of those green varieties. I'll have to look up my book and see if I kept good enough track. Here are more interesting looking tomatoes that are growing, and a pepper plant in the foreground. Here's another one of those tomato plants. It's like, should I keep watering it or not? I don't know. But the reason why I mention maybe I should is because this plant here is a bushy, wacky little plant that I started from seeds back in February inside, and it lived in a flower pot outside for about 4 months, 5 months, waiting for a decision whether or not to let it keep on living. And just, let's see, I ended up transplanting it out here in the yard when I transplanted my second crop of tomatoes in like July. And just in the last month, I got 2 tomatoes off it. Well, check this out. It's flowered all the way through, and now there are, must be about a dozen tiny little tomatoes on there. So, being glad that I did keep on watering it. Here is where the corn used to be, and I believe all these are radishes. Some of them are daikon radishes, and some are watermelon radishes. And then another beet that's starting. The rest of that area, I don't know if these things are weeds or something I planted or what. Definitely some sign of a dandelion in there. I believe I finally have a fennel that has taken root. And in this particular bed, I did add some compost just on top, not even really mixed in with the soil. And on this end, I took 4 different varieties of carrots, 2 of which were ones that I had bought for this season, and 2 of which were ones that were given to me that were leftovers from previous seasons. And they are working. So we're gonna have carrots. Taking a look back at the rest of the garden.